good evening, and welcome to our special topic Zoomcast series. We're delighted you're here. The title for tonight's presentation is Can't Buy Freedom: How to Use Recovery Tools for Financial and Personal Independence. Tonight, our presenters are Vernell.
Hi, everybody. I'm Vernell, a grateful recovering codependent and an adult child from Waxhaw, North Carolina. Tonight, I will speak on how the 12-step recovery way of life guided me to recognize the false fears that drove my self-defeating behaviors. Thank you.
And Amy.
Hi, I'm Amy. I'm an ACA and I'm an AA. And tonight I will share on how to set boundaries in our financial and personal lives.
After Amy is Abby.
Hi, everybody. I'm Abby, and I am an adult child and a recovering codependent from North Atlanta. And tonight I'll be tracing the roots of my conception of what financial security represented to me regarding my self-worth, and how my codependent and recovery character traits shaped my financial habits and put me on a road to financial freedom. Thank you. And back to Emily.
And I'm Emily. I'll be the last presenter tonight. I'm going to be sharing a meditation that will help us achieve an abundance mindset. Oh, by the way, I'm also a recovering codependent and adult child in South Carolina. Okay. Our Zoomcast tonight will last a minimum of an hour and a maximum of an hour and a half. These special topics were created from a desire expressed by many during various recovery meetings. These Zoomcasts are open to anyone from any 12-step programs that are not affiliated with, endorsed by, or registered with any specific 12-step program. Renel's going to post a flyer about that. All 4 of our Zoomcasts will be recorded and posted to our YouTube channel, Growing in Recovery. So good news, if you missed the first 2 previous Zoomcasts, you can still view them. Or if you want to rewatch them again in the future, you might even consider passing them along to other fellow travelers. If interested, you can check out some of our previous Zoomcasts on the channel as well. The link to our YouTube channel will be posted in the chat box. We'll also post a resource document in the chat box that contains some of what we'll discuss tonight and lots of other helpful information. Don't forget to save it if you like. And by the way, if we add additional resources to the Google account, then we'll update the video description to include those documents as well. Okay, so you're not going to miss anything. In order to protect everyone's anonymity as much as possible, your names will be removed from your video box. Also, if you're not comfortable being recorded, please feel free to turn off your camera. At this time, we'd like to ask everyone to mute their microphones to minimize background noise. Thank you. Now let's unite as our presenters each read a portion of the Unity Prayer.
I put my hand in yours, and together we can do what we can never do alone.
No longer is there a sense of hopelessness. No longer must we each depend upon our own unsteady willpower.
We are all together now, reaching out our hands for power and strength greater than ours.
And as we join hands, we find love and understanding beyond our wildest dreams. Thank you.
So without further ado, Vernell, will you please get us started?
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I was born into a family with generations of neurotic, fear-based, codependent patterns, some of which were loco, crazy, angry, controlling, manipulative thinking. I don't blame them. I became them. Then I forgave them. The generations were seeped in layers of pain, fear, and worry. It was a normal way of life. The normal became acceptable. It wasn't questioned as abnormal. They had been living under the cozy, warm blanket of denial. They didn't know they were lying. The fears of the past were driving the addiction to fear, false emotions appearing real. Those family members were my caregivers, my teachers. I became a student extraordinaire. I swiftly, like a sponge, absorbed the delusional family thought processes. Fear, the chief activator, was the bedrock on which I built all my future disasters. I began to slowly face my disease of codependency in 2002. The first CODA meeting I attended opened my mind enough that I was able to acknowledge the enormous amounts of pain, grief, and fear I was stuck in. I wasn't aware at that time, but things weren't falling apart. They were beginning to fall in place. The pain became my best motivator for change. I then spent a few years away from CODA due to having to be a primary caregiver for my mother, who was in rapidly declining health. In November 2006, I found the rooms of CODA once again. With the help of another member, I started a meeting and attended that meeting. I kept coming back, and miraculously, I am still attending the same meeting today. It's now on Zoom. Shocker alert. Besides my raging anger and control issues, I had two underlying self-defeating addictions. They had been my dear close friends since childhood. First, I was an emotional overeater. I was addicted to food. This was a family tradition. I learned to eat my feelings down. Food brought me the comfort from the chaos. It was a numbing agent. In my late teens, I discovered it was easy for me to basically starve myself to get rid of the extra weight. The yo-yo was in full swing. As my waistline grew, my self-esteem plummeted. In 2002, I attended my niece's wedding. I literally had nothing in my closet that fit me. I went shopping and had to squeeze into a size 18 dress. I was fat, overwhelmed, and disgusted.
How many times have I told you not to eat so much junk food and so many sweets? I warned you that you'd blow up like a balloon and wouldn't fit into your clothes. It's so embarrassing to be seen with you. I guess you'll never learn, will you? What are the neighbors going to think of you? You should be smarter. You should be skinnier. You should be more in control.
I recognize you, critical parent. That sounds like criticism to me, and it's not constructive. I don't appreciate or like how you talk to me. I understand that deep down you care about me. Your judgments and body shaming aren't helping me build positive self-esteem. In this moment, I no longer need you to remind me of my food and weight issues. I've got this now. Thanks for caring. Have a great day. My second compulsive coping skill, you guessed it, overspending. Yes, I was a shopaholic. I used retail therapy. It was a great way not to deal, heal, think, or feel. The upsizing and downsizing of my waistline gave me an excuse to buy. I was struggling to stay afloat. I went into deep debt. I purchased things I didn't want or need. I used credit cards and I was unable to make the payments. I robbed Peter to pay Paul. I kept my purchases a secret from my husband. I would sneak things into the house when he was away. Today, I realize I lost myself in the buying of things. I was selfish, inconsiderate, fearful, and completely unconscious to what I was doing. I was literally as sick as my secret.
Well, well, money doesn't grow on trees, you know. Why spend money on anything nice? You're not valuable or worthy enough to own it. You've never been capable of taking care of anything.
It's you again, critical parent. You might think you're being helpful, but that type of critical advice and controlling words of shame are harmful. Comments like that don't work anymore. I act with courage and treat myself with dignity. I am valuable and worthy. I trust myself to make smarter choices when it comes to handling finances. Please get out of my mind. I'm becoming a thriving adult. I like and respect the new me. Bye-bye for now. I'm sure we'll talk again another time.
What are you going to do without me? Who will keep you in line? You are nobody without my voice. Who will I complain to? Who will punish you now? You need my guilt, shame, and blame. You need my power of control. You need my prickly protection. Where will I go now? Who will give you sleepless nights, worry, and scare you? Will I vanish into thin air? Do I need to find another host to entertain dysfunction? I need you to make me real.
I can hear you loud and clear. I can't say your music to my ears. Your words of control, guilt, shame, blame, and abandonment have tormented me throughout my life. The voice I now hear is one of gentleness, humor, love, respect, patience, and understanding. As my own loving parent, it's my job to take my power back. I've become empowered by the renewing of my mind. I trust myself to make good decisions. I am capable and enough. Your voice used to seem real, even normal in my head. Not anymore. I don't have to conceal the real me any longer. I appreciate your thoughtfulness and believe that you were doing your best to protect me throughout the years. The fear you instilled in me no longer serves me. My program has taught me that I need to live life in the present moment where fear doesn't exist. Please go away now. In this moment, I am kissing you goodbye. Maybe you've noticed by now that I have purposely woven a theme throughout this talk. After decades of recovery work, it has been eye-opening to have figured out that fear has been the root cause, an evil and corroding thread that plagued all my life struggles. We've all heard that Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. So sad, Humpty. It was quite unfortunate that all the king's horses and men couldn't put him back together again. Thankfully, in my case, with the help of my wise recovery family and friends, I'm learning to rebuild a new and improved version of my life. One moment, one day, one step at a time. I'm learning to face the fears that kept me in bondage to my self-harming and defeating behaviors. If ever I'm in doubt, I reach out to another fellow who has a keen recovery ear to hear my hidden fears. How did I do it, you ask? I got honest, brutally honest with myself. I became open. I opened my mind. I became teachable. Only then could I see my selfishness, inconsideration, stinking thinking, and fear-based lies. I became willing to take whatever actions were sufficient to my recovery. Slowly, I learned to let go of being dragged and trust the God of my understanding. I was able to break links in my long chain of fear when in January 2017, I found the courage to ask a wise, seasoned, caring fellow traveler to be my sponsor. I then faced another big fear of mine. I took a huge leap of faith. I did my first fifth step with that sponsor. Other recovery people also modeled change was possible. I was able to see that I too could find freedom and live a happy and joyous life. I continue to come out of the darkness and into the light, a work in progress. I'm willing to take chances. Opportunities abound for me to practice what I've learned. I keep awakening to the revelation that life is my teacher. For me, it's like Groundhog Day. The lessons continue to pop up until I learn the spiritual lesson it wants to teach me. I've committed to carrying the message of hope to others. As my sponsor says, the second phase of my recovery is to be of contribution to suffering others. I've also heard that the ultimate goal of recovery is not as much what I get, but what I can give away. In the Big Red Book, page 292, it says, to avoid helping others is to avoid helping ourselves. I am truly grateful for both CODA and ACA. They helped me face and hopefully begin to break the generational curse of denial and fear. Today, I am part of the family solution, not the problem. And I'd like to thank and think that somewhere my ancestors, past and present, may be smiling on me. I don't know. On November 4th, I celebrated my 16-year CODA anniversary. I consider myself a winner because God chose me to be part of something so much bigger than myself. Becoming my authentic self, whom my higher power created me to be, has been the best gift I could have ever imagined. I ponder what it says, and I have my medallion right here on my CODA medallion. To thine own self be true. When I started this journey, I lived life as either the victim, the persecutor, or main qualifiers, chief enabler, and family hero. I played it down by acting less than, by giving away my power to please other people. The second part of Shakespeare's To Thine Own Self Be True is, and it must follow as the night the day, thou canst not then be false to any man. Today, I do my best to be my true self to God, myself, and others. Many moons ago, before I found the rooms of recovery, I tried various other ways to change my life. Maybe you've tried some too, softer, easier ways to recover, as I did. One was to visit the library on a regular basis. I read almost every self-help book they had. Although helpful at the time, to this day, not much of anything I read has stuck with me. In my opinion, there is nothing that works better or has had a more positive impact on improving my life than working the 12 steps, attending meetings, practicing the principles, and serving others through sponsorship and being available for outreach calls. I relate with the fact that my life today is split in three: BR, before recovery, AR, after recovery, and now GR, growing in recovery. While doing daily routines, I stop to check in with myself to make sure I'm operating out of the recovery principles. I ask myself questions like, what is my motive? How important is it? What do I think? What do I need? What do I feel? By putting my needs in the forefront, I have learned how to treat myself like someone I care about and love. I've developed new ways to remain calm, serene, and more conscious in stressful life situations, the ones that in the past caused me stress and self-created drama. Have all these changes been easy? Absolutely not. Has it been worth it? 100%. CODA Promise 2 keeps coming true for me. I am no longer controlled by my fears. I overcome my fears and act with courage, integrity, and dignity. I'm grateful that I found a new freedom from my self-defeating lifestyles through the program of CODA and ACA. I know better today, and so I do better. Emotional and mental sobriety, it's a beautiful thing. With God by my side, hard work and willingness, I have miraculously become an overcomer. As I begin to close out, I'd like to leave you with a few thoughts to ponder and maybe a challenge or two. How many times have you said, I desperately want to be happy, joyous, and free? Are you desperate enough to do whatever it takes to be free of your fear, addiction, problem, pattern, unhealthy relationship, delusional thinking, and self-harming behaviors? A few big questions remain. Let's spend a few minutes now to open our hearts, mind, and spirit by getting really honest with ourselves. What actions are you willing to take right now? How might you move to that place of courage deep within you that can guide you to face and change your own self-defeating behaviors, the ones that keep you paralyzed in a worried state of mind? What steps, principles, and tools of recovery will you choose to utilize so you can live a happier, joy-filled life of personal and financial independence? The title of this presentation is Can't Buy Freedom. As the name implies, freedom can't be bought. It isn't free. It takes hard work, persistence, determination, and willingness. There is a line from a song called Freedom from Django Unchained that summed it up for me. And it was an inspiration to what I wrote tonight. I am looking for freedom, and to find it may take everything I have. Now let's close our eyes for a moment. Take a breath with me. Imagine now that you are loved, valuable, and worthy of living in freedom, love, joy, peace, and happiness. In this moment, may you find the courage to change the one you can and the wisdom to know that one is you. Thank you for the opportunity to let me share part of my recovery story with you. I'm grateful for the people who paved the way for me. It proves to me that it does work, but only when I work it. You are never alone. This is a we program. Together we share, together we learn, and together we grow and heal. Thank you for letting me share. I will now turn it over to my teammate and fellow traveler, Amy. Thank you.
Thank you, Vernell. That was wonderful. The name, I am Amy, and I am a member of ACA, AA, and I've been a member of Al-Anon for 30 years this past August. I come from a family of 6 children, and I'm the oldest girl. For me, the oldest girl meant that most of my life, I have tried to control and manipulate the people and places in and around my life to make me happy. Growing up, I had everything I needed, but not a lot of what I wanted. Mom and Daddy provided very well for us, but I knew I would start working as soon as I could to get my own spending money. My grandma was the one who spoiled us all. She would take me shopping and buy me what I wanted. I stuck very close to Grandma. After I married, whenever we didn't have enough money, I would pick up the phone and cry to Grandma or Mama or Daddy, and they would send a check or get in the car and bring us money. How narcissistic was that? We never ran out of cigarettes, though. That was really funny too. They supported our habit. After 18 years of marriage, my husband decided he wanted a divorce. More tears and wailing to Mama, and she sent me $2,000 to pay the lawyer. 3 weeks later, I needed money for the mortgage. The only way I could make the money was to sell my jewelry. So naturally, I picked up the phone and called Mama. After sobbing out my story, she replied, "Well, I hope you get enough." And that shocked me, the tears right out of me. For the first time in my 39 years, Mama told me no. I sold my jewelry and paid the mortgage. I never had to ask my mama for money again. I grew up a little that day, but I was still not managing my money well. I limped along and paid the bills and used credit cards and loans. I discovered Al-Anon 30 years ago when I was going through my divorce. I mainly went to find another man who would take care of me. It took me 3 years to ask someone to be my sponsor and longer than that to work the steps, but I did. And Al-Anon helped me to become my own person and not expect anyone else to fulfill my expectations. It also gave me a very loving higher power, unconditional love, something that I am still trying to practice myself. Of course, in my 40s and 50s, I was still looking for Mr. Right, but he never appeared except for in the form of my higher power. In my 50s, I became an alcoholic. Today, I have no control over alcohol, and so for the last 7 years, I have been in AA. I retired from my job 4 years ago, and 2 years into retirement, I knew I was not going to make it money-wise. I turned myself in to my Al-Anon sponsor, and she and I worked out a budget. I had to give her my credit cards, and I depended on her for the next 2 years to keep me straight and within my budget. Today, I am debt-free except for my mortgage and a student loan that I co-signed for a friend. She's contributing to pay it off, and we have about 8 more years to go. Ask me why I co-signed a loan for a friend, but would not for my children. Well, I felt guilty that I had money and the friend didn't. I was rescuing the friend. On page 101, Encouraged to Change in Al-Anon, I'm gonna paraphrase this, but it says, having lived with alcoholism, many of us have come to think of ourselves as innocent victims of other people's abuse. It can be shocking to discover that we have harmed others. Listing those we have harmed becomes a discovery process in which a more realistic sense of responsibility can begin to develop. My part was not being financially independent and relying on my family. In another way, I have to let go of my exaggerated sense of responsibility. Other people's expectations are not my responsibility unless I have helped to create them. I'm not responsible for anyone's unfulfilled desires. Today, I am not anyone's bank, ride, grocery shopper, roommate, or solution. I love being the heroine in the story. What I don't love is when I spread myself too thin like butter on a slice of bread. Then I get grumpy and hateful. I fall back into people pleasing and being somebody's heroine. I have had a relapse. Coming to ACA has helped me dig deeper into my character defects and realize the things I need to change. I am responsible for myself. I have to keep the focus on myself and work out my issues and leave everyone else alone. Thank you for letting me share. And now I would like to introduce Abby.
Thanks, Amy. Thank you so much for sharing that experience, strength, and hope. So as I said, I'm Abby. I'm recovering codependent and an adult child. And this part of my story deals with my financial recovery and my hopefully my road to financial freedom. So as I've journeyed through my recovery, I've taken the opportunity to look at my relationships with money as it's reflected in the mirror of my self-conceived notions from childhood through adulthood. I aim to share the genesis, my developing impressions, some patterns that contributed to my dysfunctional habits, and healthy changes via my recovery. As a kiddo, my concept of wealth was a red flag indicator of an up-and-coming codependent. I grew up in the early 1960s in a new middle-class family. Those who had hands in raising me were children of the World War II era, as well as second and third generation Americans, focused on the future and frugal where necessary and whenever possible. As youngsters, messaging from family, schools, and the pulpit told us that our futures would be predicated on the success of our upcoming choices, careers, or in some case, family you came from. The family you came from. As stories have it, both of my great-grandfathers came to the US from Europe around the turn of the 20th century. Only after great sacrifice, hard work, and prudent financial decisions were they able to bring over their immediate and extended families in short order. Both sides of my ancestry, navigating becoming Americans, some even served in World War I. They survived the Depression and watched as their children attended or graduated from college and entered white-collar professions. My father's generation held the same beliefs that they grew up with, that a parent is a successful parent if their children have an easier road than they had. I carried that message with my own daughter, suggesting that she should live in a house so large she wouldn't even know I was living there. Impression: focused and frugal choices. My birth mother's family settled in Pittsburgh and were active members in their community. My great-grandfather was an attorney, as was his son-in-law, my grandfather. My grandmother aspired to study law after she graduated from Ohio State, but something happened and she was called home after her second year as an undergrad. Perhaps it was World War I had something to do with it, or perhaps some other unfortunate family setback. That side of the family seemed much less tolerant to life's randoms, ups and downs. My grandmother had envy that her youngest sister was able to graduate from Carnegie Mellon in her profession of acting, a career that included many opportunities. And as a result, my aunt was very generous with my grandmother as well as other family members, including myself. So in lieu of her original dreams, my grandmother married a lawyer and settled in a Tony section of Pittsburgh. She professed to have preferred to be active in women's causes as opposed to luncheons, much to her mother's disapproval, and perhaps her husband's as well. By the time my grandmother's son was 10 and my mother was 8, she found herself suddenly widowed. Not only widowed, but my grandfather, who was the district attorney of Pittsburgh at the time of his death, was in great debt. In fact, they were broke. Perhaps he was in debt because he had another secret family also living in Pittsburgh. My stoic grandmother could not hide the humiliation she felt having to return to her parents' home and face their social circle with this situation. Her humiliation ignited her independence and self-reliance. She set herself up as a professional woman in the late 1930s, making a move to Chicago with her 2 young children, whom she quickly boarded in schools across the country from each other. The woman was not the best mother, but a respected survivor nonetheless. I knew her as a world traveler and as an admired female executive at a large nonprofit in Washington, D.C. But whenever I was sent to visit her, I was always cautioned to never mention her actual age or anything regarding her personal life. Impression: humiliation and failure are to be overcome at all costs. Secrecy, perception, and survival yield success. The sense of pride and prejudice was very apparent to me as a young child. As I mentioned, we lived in the newly created suburbs where keeping up with your neighbors was a sport, but one that didn't really catch my dad's attention. He had enough on his plate being a young single father, a homeowner, and worked a job that had non-traditional hours. I never had a sense of resentment or frustration from him, and we never wanted for anything of which I'm aware. But compared to my cousins, I led a very different lifestyle. My father was unexpectedly obliged to balance raising an infant by himself and focusing on his own young career in journalism. My cousins frequently called me out on their perception that I was not as smart as they were, nor had what they had, as children often do. And granted, as an only child, I was more prone to taking these critiques much more personally than I may have had I been raised in a larger family. I allowed the art of comparison to contribute to my early feelings of inferiority. By grade school, I was absorbing the message that our self-worth was tied to what our fathers or parents did for a living, where we lived, what I wore, and where we traveled on vacation. Impression, sacrifice, perception, priorities, and responsibilities. So my father was clearly not as materialistically aggressive as his two brothers. So lacking that competitive gene and involved coaches, I began choosing comparison over competition. Perceiving failed attempts, whether they be athletic or scholastic or social, I did not have the tools to get back up, dust myself off, and try again. My adults would ask me why I quit, but that was always after the fact. I developed my own comparison and control characteristics to help me discern and accept my odds of success and my self-worth. This low self-esteem pattern would allow me to avoid the future pains of failure and contribute from the sidelines. And that matured into my do as I say, not as I do proclivity. I entered junior high as we moved from one bedroom community to another in my hometown of Dayton, Ohio. The city of Oakwood was an historic nod to Dayton's innovative success at the turn of the century and home to some of Dayton's most successful industrialists. A lovely boulevard cut the city in half. Old residences and large estates on one side, and nice homes of Dayton's established middle class on the other side. Our home was very nice for the nickel section, as my father used to call our side. My stepmom took the move to Oakwood very seriously and had the house decorated to her dream expectations. Resentments later concluded that she may have overspent, and I overheard segments of arguments and watched as a new marriage found its triggers. It was never wasted on my stepbrother and myself that money did not grow in trees. It did not matter what the children down the block had or did not have. The parents were the earners and the deciders. We had a 2-week shopping list, and when something ran out, it was not replaced unless it was a staple. Clothes were purchased for back to school and supplemented with Christmas or birthday gifts. Vacations were typically driving from Ohio to the East Coast to visit relatives. Impression? Finances were pragmatic at the expense of appearance, but not frivolous pleasure. From the time I was a teen, I always had some sort of supplemental income so that I could participate in many of the activities that my peers often took for granted. However, I failed to pay tribute to myself for taking it upon myself to acquire what I thought was the missing link to my acceptance and happiness. Instead of focusing on what I provided for myself, I felt a sense of shame and hypocrisy that I had to toil for my treat, and even lied to propel the assumption that it was as much of a given in my house as it had been in theirs. Impression? Self-worth and success equals financial and material abundance, and therefore happiness. The core of my codependency was simply born out of my shameful feelings that I was consistently falling short in comparison in any number of areas, whether it be comparing my home life, looks, intelligence, or happiness with my peers. It did not take long at all for this child to become an adult who would equate financial and material abundance equally, if not in some cases more, to anyone's self-worth. I judged unread books by their covers. I moved to Manhattan after college, obtaining an affordable third-generation sublet in a rent-controlled walk-up on the Upper East Side. What this means is that I was 2 sublets away from the person who was lawfully living in that apartment, who also was dead. And at the time, and that any time that bubble could burst, and I should be prepared to segue into another self-supporting living situation. I ignored the very sound advice that my stepmom once imparted during these conversations. My rent should never be more than 1 week's pay. My total expenses should not be more than 3 weeks' pay. And that fourth week's pay was for emergencies. Of course, that makes sense to me now, and I've used it as a rule of thumb with myself, as well as suggesting the same to my daughter with about the same success. Like her at the time, my savings were spent on my future, which in my mid-20s were short-term goals, often later that same day. I was never in arrears, but I had no plans at all for maintaining a lifestyle that I assumed would always be easy to maintain. And this became all too painfully apparent when a few years later, my fiance and I resigned from well-paying jobs in New York and moved to Atlanta about a year after my father's death. Here my adulting began, especially financially. Neither of us readily found equivalent jobs and income replacing the ones we had relinquished in our great migration south. The decision to move to Atlanta from New York was criticized by most of my family for several reasons. Once our savings were exhausted, I used money I had inherited from my father, and I kept us afloat living on the banks of the Denial River. After about 6 months of not finding satisfactory work in the advertising field and not yet realizing I was pregnant, my husband and I were presented with the opportunity to buy a typesetting and graphic design business from a little old lady who was looking to retire and hightail it out of town before we discovered that the books were cooked. This was salt in the wound when it became apparent that due to a lack of research and an abundance of gullible faith, we were a couple of years away from being the owners of an obsolete business due to the publishing capabilities of the personal computer. We were faced with very expensive pivots in machinery, training, and firing. And because of my low self-esteem defenses, I couldn't bear to even contemplate the possibility of admitting that we had been taken and had to either reinvest more money into the business or just keep up appearances and hope for a miracle. I was scared, and I chose to hope for the miracle. At the expense of looking like inept failures, I paid everything and everyone else first, using a credit card whenever possible. I bartered where I could for our child's preschool education and activities, and I ate a lot of starchy meals. We both took part-time jobs on the weekend. We put our child on the state's medical plan for low-income families, crossing our fingers that we would escape any medical emergencies, which thankfully was the case. At any time an unexpected expense came up, I took it personally and initially raged at the injustice of the world. Of course, it was out of fear that I had no plan, no safety net. I would then go into full victim survival mode, trying to secure mercy discounts or payment plans. By about year 3 in the business, and with our toddler, I was barely able to keep up with the minimum interest payments on the credit cards. I finally reached out to my maternal grandmother's sister, whom I shared a special bond. She took the time to calm me down and to ask me to come up with a plan of what I might do with a $10,000 loan from her. Through this exercise, I was able to look at what I owed and see how desperate my spending had become. I was not only taking care of responsibilities, it was clear that I was trying to maintain a facade of the life I thought we were supposed to be supporting. I took that $10,000 loan and have never been in credit card debt again. I sent my aunt money weekly, initially redirecting savings I discovered on necessities that our child had grown out of. That was an easy allocation for me to make, a healthy financial trait that I practice to this day. When one project or debt is met, that money does not go back into my pocket, it goes into another bucket. You got it, my bucket list. My aunt passed away well before I had fully repaid her. And in her will, it was disclosed that $10,000 was to be subtracted from my inheritance and instead allocated to her charity of choice. She did not disclose the nature of the entry, and while I no longer owed her the full amount, I did owe her my life for answering my rare call for help. I was so honored to have those funds diverted. That love and support completely changed my relationship with debt, reality, and generosity. I should say it eventually changed my relationship because I had to go through some recovery as well, but I did get there. To help make my long story short, we stayed with the business about 7 years, eventually worked it out of the house as a profitable side business, and we both took other 9-to-5 career paths. In hindsight, owning our own business did give us the flexibility to be hands-on with our daughter and be involved in her preschool and elementary school activities. It's been 23 years now since we gave up working for ourselves, and our fortunes certainly have improved. Giving up control and acknowledging that our situation had become unmanageable for our present and future was certainly an act of a higher power, and for one for which I am eternally grateful. As fate would have it, my career path, I ended up working with investments in the financial services industry. I struggled telling my story when asked where I had previously worked, for fear that I would be judged as the only person in the world who failed to notice that their business was failing. Little did I know how many clients I would work for over the years who had gone from rags to riches a couple of times in their life. I met families who seemed well off financially and became familiar with what was aiding or hindering their success. Many times I was encouraged that I could relate. As my discretionary income became accommodating to more and more options, I put money aside to make sure that my daughter could participate in many of the expensive activities I could not afford. But too frequently, I felt the need to let her know that she was the beneficiary of our hard work. Sometimes I would even tell her how many hours we had to work to send her to a two-week sleepaway camp, or what went into the planning for the purchase of her latest "I must have it or I'll die" item. It was not enough just to provide. I had to be the hero, the martyr, the victim, the controller. My codependency also fed the need to compensate and jump in and save others even before they asked, because no one had jumped in and bailed me out when I needed it. Too many times I felt that if I was asked for a loan, I was obligated to comply, despite the fact that I had reservations of ever being repaid. But since they said they would, I would become enraged and take it personally when I was left unreimbursed. I would lavish gifts on others in order to project a sense of my own generosity and success, but I kept score in my head. In recovery, I can now observe somebody go through the consequences of their own actions and not feel responsible for how it turns out for them financially. I can make suggestions if asked because I know I have good experience to share, but I have no investment whatsoever should my thoughts on the matter be disregarded. I no longer loan money. I consider if I should gift it, and I'm quite discerning and carefully contemplate my motivation when asked to give those gifts, not out of judgment, but self-love. In amends to myself, I realize that others are capable of managing their own affairs, and my job is to let them. Out of honest self-awareness, I know how to plan for my own bucket list items. Again, as I mentioned, I've found great success in taking on projects. I take them with terms charging 0% interest. And when that project or item is paid off, those funds are diverted into a savings account, not back into our operating budget. This has given me the opportunity to live within my means pragmatically and have discretionary funds to play and celebrate my fiscal responsibility. I work hard and I've played hard, and now I relax hard. And I make it a point to celebrate my self-worth and what that can most proudly buy, which is options and choices. Impression, I no longer place a higher value on others' opinions and feelings and allow those fears and resentments to dictate my self-worth. Why? Because I'm worth it. Again, I'm Abby. Thank you for letting me share. And now I'm going to turn it over to my Zen friend, Emily.
Thank you, Abby, for sharing your amazing road to recovery. I'm Emily, a codependent child of an alcoholic and a dysfunctional family. Like my fellow travelers before me, I grew up in a family where money had the power, who had it, where it came from, and the cost of taking it. When it would run out, either from dysfunctional manipulation or job loss. So, of course, I would create my own fear monsters and scarcity mentality as an adult. The meditation that I want to share with you today was born out of a spiritual awakening, my personal spiritual awakening moment of gratitude and hope. But first, let me share the day of the shift. a regular day with extraordinary enlightenment that I will never forget. In 2010, I separated from my physically and emotionally abusive husband. My kids were 3 and 18 months at the time, and I was unemployed. So although I was getting alimony and child support, I also got the house and the divorce because I wanted some stability for my kids. I was very much in a scarcity mindset though, not just financially. I cut off several toxic friends and family members who were quick to fault me for the abuse. So I didn't have much of a social support system, and I lived in constant fear that we would lose the house. And I have to say, there were many days where I really literally did not know where our next meal would come from. The day of the shift was a typical day in the life of a single mom, single unemployed mom. It was gorgeous weather, so I took the kids to the park. They were having fun, going wild on the playground, and I was, as usual, worried about how many groceries I'd be able to buy on the way home. I was pushing my kids on the swing. That's our favorite playground activity. They're teens now, but that was our favorite playground activity, was the swings. And I was laughing as they were screaming with glee. I remember looking up at the trees, and the sun was shining through the leaves. And I was looking up, first of all, and seeing this beautiful sun and the nature, and the trees were really just speaking to me, and the leaves, and just being in that moment. And I had this overwhelming sense of complete serenity and peace. So totally opposite of my usual mode of operation. I was honestly surprised that I could even recognize it, truly. It was just an amazing piece. And I even caught my kids' excitement and that sense of almost flying in the swing. And it was a feeling of gratitude for this time that I had with my small, precious kids while I was unemployed. This fun park that was filled with trees, beautiful weather, this joy of play. And, you know, the really cool thing is that my kids never begged me for expensive toys or lavish vacations. Yes, they were young, but they didn't want the expensive toys. They didn't want the big money items. They were just thrilled to be on the playground with me. That was their happiest moment. That was their present. It was just, Mom's pushing us on the swing. This is a blast. That experience lasted about 10 minutes. And then my personal reality set back in. It was getting late, time to pack up and head to the store. And though I was still worried about the groceries, it was eased, having just felt that 180-degree shift in mood and vibration. And it gave me hope, because I knew deep down I could still feel hope in my tiny little hole in the ground. And I caught that feeling again about a week later, again, sitting outside, not really doing anything important, just enjoying the weather, enjoying nature. You know how when you do something accidentally awesome, like hit a home run or make the perfect meal or catch all the green lights in traffic? I decided I wanted to recreate this feeling on purpose, as if I were practicing a new skill. So in that tiny subconscious effort, I had set an intention. Now, as we start this meditation, I want to ask you to think about an intention. What works for me when I'm feeling in a rut, I ask my higher power, I tell my higher power, I just want to feel just a little bit better, even just 10%. I just want to feel just 10% better, because I can get 10% better. I can't get all the way to 100% better, maybe overnight or within 10 or 5 or 10 minutes. But I can get a little better, I can get 10% better, and then after that, I can get another 10% better, and after that, I can get another, and so on and so on and so on. So we're going to start off with a very simple breathing exercise called box breathing. You may have heard of this. And it doesn't matter if you do this in the future, it doesn't really matter how long you inhale or exhale. Some people might have a hard time breathing that long or holding their breath that long. So whatever is comfortable for you. but it's just a tool meant to give our monkey minds something to focus on and ground us in the moment. Okay. So I'll explain it first, and then we'll do 3 sets together. Okay. So you can close your eyes at this point if you like, or just let your gaze soften. Each breath will be to the count of 4, and in between inhale and exhale, we'll retain the breath for 4 counts. So here's the first one. We're going to inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4. Gently hold your breath for 1, 2, 3, 4, and exhale for 1, 2, 3, 4. Then retain for 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to try that again for 3 cycles. First cycle. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Retain for 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale for 1, 2, 3, 4. And retain for 1, 2, 3, 4. Twice more. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Retain. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. And retain for 1, 2, 3, 4. Last time. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Retain for 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale for 1, 2, 3, 4. And retain for 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, you can resume your normal breathing pattern. Now, just remember once again your intention. We're going to use our imagination and our 5 senses to create a mindset of abundance. I want you to think about your idea of a warm evening in late summer. You're outside somewhere, maybe in your yard or a park, a vacation spot in the mountains or the beach. Maybe you're wearing shorts or a t-shirt. With your sense of touch, how does the air around you feel? Is it humid? Is there a breeze cooling the perspiration on your skin? Are there little gnats, little tiny mosquitoes tickling your face or landing inquisitively on your arms? What is the surface that you're sitting on? Is it soft, like a grassy yard, or hard, like a wooden deck, or maybe a concrete driveway? What do you smell? Maybe somebody mowed the grass earlier today, or a neighbor's grilling or having a bonfire. What kind of flowers are blooming where you are? Here in Columbia, South Carolina, we have gardenias, privets, jasmine, honeysuckle, and wisteria. Those are my favorite smells of the summertime. What can you hear? A barking dog? Maybe a squeaky screen door closing? A rocking chair? Maybe you can hear the buzz of the gnats buzzing by your face. We have katydids and tree frogs here. Maybe you're near a little creek with water moving over the rocks. Maybe an occasional car driving by. Maybe kids are out late playing basketball or hitting a baseball. What can you see behind your closed eyelids? If it's dark enough, do you see flickers of shapes or colors? How dark is it outside? Like just past sunset for you? Did you maybe light a few candles earlier? Maybe you can see the flickers of flames in contrast to the dark outside. Are the street lights coming on? The glow of light from the window? With your sense of taste, because you just finished dinner. Maybe you enjoyed a late night treat of watermelon with a glass of ice cold lemonade. If you're in a garden space, maybe you plucked a ripe tomato off the vine. We have muscadine grapes here in my driveway, and they're a sweet tart burst on my tongue. Notice what else you can tell with your senses that I might not have thought of. Just be in your space for just a minute. When you've noticed all these little minute details, I want you to step back and see that space as a whole. I want you to realize that you created this moment just for yourself. Maybe I gave you suggestions, but you used your imagination to fill in the pieces of what's real for you, of what you've experienced, of what brings joy to you, what brings serenity and peace to you. This is your reality right now, down to your very physical senses. Notice how you feel in this space. You feel safe, grounded, peaceful, connected to something bigger than you. Your focus is right here, not on worries from earlier in the day, not what you have to do tonight or tomorrow, just right here, right now. Okay. We're going to gently come back into the room that you're in right now. As I count down from 5, I want you to notice your body, where it is in your current space. Are you sitting on a couch or a chair? Notice the temperature of the room that you're in. If your feet are curled up underneath you or flat on the floor. 4, I want you to take a deep breath in and sigh out. 3, gently start to wiggle your fingers and toes. 2, take another breath in and out. Move your eyes left to right behind your eyelids. 1, slowly open your eyes. So you just transported yourself to a place that may have felt truly real, even though you were sitting here the whole time. We do that all the time when we daydream about vacations or a night out with friends or just a quiet evening making dinner. We do it all the time. It's daydreaming. But, you know, we're using our imagination and we're creating a feeling. We're looking forward to a feeling. Yes, we're looking forward to that physical experience, but there's also a feeling behind it, right? Fun, ease, joy. You know what those experiences, you know what those emotions feel like, even if you're not currently experiencing them. Hopefully you can recall what a comforting hug feels like at any time, or the sense of relief of a burden being lifted. And we're creating a mindset of abundance and freedom. The emotion is way more important than the actual reality. Step 9 promises on page 83 and 84 in the Big Blue Book. We're going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we cannot do for ourselves. Are these unrealistic promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will materialize if we work for them. And I just want to say, by the time I've been working on this meditation for the last few days, I felt slightly disconnected from my authenticity. And I wanted to make sure that this was an authentic experience for not only you, but for myself as well. And I want to thank everybody, my fellow presenters and my fellow travelers, for making this as much of a real experience for me as it is for you. And I do truly feel like it's an authentic. I do truly feel like I've shared something authentic with you. And I'm grateful to be here. Thanks for listening to my story.
Wow, thank you very much. Thank you, Emily, and thank you to all of our presenters. And a special thank you to our special guest tonight, the critical inner parent, Nan, for assisting. Nan, if you could raise your hand, take a bow. Thank you so very much. So we're now going to be opening the room for some sharing, for our sharing portion of our meeting. And we're going to have some brief 3-minute shares for you to share your experience, strength, and hope, or ask any questions that you may have about how your life has been impacted by money, compulsive spending, overeating, or other financial issues. What recovery strategy and tools that can you share that have worked for you? We ask that you be your own timekeeper, and a friendly reminder, this meeting is being recorded. Please raise your digital hand, and the host will call on you. We are now open for sharing. Carla?
Hello, this is Carla in ATA. So grateful to be here. Thank you for the service provided. I got so much out of it. I felt I was able to identify a lot. But to me, finance is funny because up until this meeting, I actually felt I'm very good on timing myself, by the way. I'm in a great position. I actually, as soon as I started doing, maybe 4 years ago that I started doing the steps for the first time, I remember one of the promises of financially freedom and financially secure. And as soon as I did the steps, that's exactly what happened. I got a full-time job. I was able to stop being dependent on my family, which I grew up with a lot of privilege. But at the same time, that left me kind of, it left me with the impression that for me to become independent, I have to make a lot of money because I was living a very high standard life. And luckily, I found a full-time job. I continue and I became independent. I actually started doing things for myself. I started having more money. And I was like, wow. Now, for me, money was the way I was being controlled. All my life, I had to ask for money. That's, if they didn't give me money, I couldn't go. And it was such a control thing that I developed this fear, basic fear for money. And I went the opposite. I went into full saving mode, not spending everything I make, keep it, not on the question of just traveling or doing nice things for me. I got to the point one time, I ate something that was rotten and I didn't even thought of ordering something, and I have all the money I could ask, but my mentality was of lacking because it was for fear. It was totally in fear. So for me, my journey has been to, I track my bills. I'm very good at, my credit cards. I never get more in depth of what I have. I'm very responsible, but my journey has really been into learning to also put money to have fun and to also have money to enjoy life. And now I feel very fortunate that, I have learned that because I have become more happy. I have become more heal, and I'm still have this journey. I'm still, sometimes I catch myself, the more money I make, the more afraid I actually become. So I'm in this path of actually, this continuing ongoing path of learning what is the balance and learning, and thank you for this meditation, because to let go and to trust, to do what I need to do, and then the rest, to really trust my higher power that everything is going to be fine, because I can get so triggered when I feel any money situation happen, because immediately I had to wrap it up, but immediately my brain goes into danger mode. I'm going to lack money and I'm going to be controlled again. But anyway, that's my critical voice, and I'm I'm learning to balance. So thank you so much for letting me share, and thank you so much for this meeting.
Thank you. Sally?
Hi, my name is Sally, ACA, and thank you so much for the presentations. I've been listening to the other ones on YouTube, and they're so helpful. This is definitely my core issue right now. I live in so much fear about money. And then because I've been in the program a long time, I turn right around and beat myself up because I'm not living in gratitude. I'm not living with my higher power. So I'm caught in a hamster's wheel of beating myself up and like, I can't even do my program right because I know better, but my thoughts are still just obsessive on the fear front. You know, it was really helpful listening to everybody talk about their past because it really normalizes some of the experiences I've had with like we all share different circumstances, but a father who, portrayed money as the most important thing and image while he didn't really have any. And my mother always terrified about paying the bills. And I of course replayed the pattern by marrying somebody who then I gave my power away, and he still controls me financially. I still live in a house that he owns half of, and I have full custody of the kids while he does whatever he wants. It's like sometimes I'm like, how did I get here? and now becoming financially responsible. For 2 years I've been applying for jobs and haven't really gotten a good full-time one, but I keep praying and may have a few leads that might turn out, but I got to turn over the results. And it's really hard when they're not going the way I want them to go. And that's very fear-provoking. The last thing I'll share is just, I've gone to like Under Earners Anonymous, Debtors Anonymous, and I get so overwhelmed. Like, which is the right room? Where am I supposed to be? How am I supposed to work this money program? And sometimes I'm getting a little overwhelmed with what my next steps are around this issue. So I will certainly just keep coming back and praying and trying to turn over my financial fear. It's like the one promise that I'm like, oh, please God, let that promise come true. So thank you again for all your hard work.
Thank you so much for sharing. Ellen, would you like to share next?
Yeah, I guess I'll share really quick. So I just recently wrecked my car. And of course I was beating myself up. How could I done it? Whatever. I was just really tired. There's a lot going on. But also knowing that it's gonna be okay. I'll handle it and it's gonna work out. And it's human, we're not perfect, and it happens. So I think it really helped to hear your stories that you're able to figure it out towards the end, like the debt, the whatever. It just is just stuff. And we don't need to stress over it, and everything's gonna be okay. So thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Ellen. Laura?
Hi, everybody. Yes, Laura from Louisiana. I joined, I wasn't able to get on time, so I missed a little bit of it. But I just wanted to say how grateful I am that my recovery program is producing these amazing Zoomcasts. You guys are incredible. I think the subject of freedom, and particularly, emotional sobriety with financial freedom, is huge. And I feel grateful that money is something that we don't talk about, in our society. So the fact that we can be a recovery family and be vulnerable, and you guys are courageous enough and of service to all of us to share your stories about your upbringing and how money's affected your decisions and your recovery is huge because we relate to the character defects that we all have some similarity with. And yes, I certainly see my upbringing being, just how dysfunctional people choose to relate to money and how it's affected me. So I wanted to say thank you for sharing your personal stories. It was very meaningful, very impactful for me. And I'm grateful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Madeline, would you like to share? I see your hand up.
I know. I'm sitting here thinking, do I share? Do I not share? Because money was a huge piece of my recovery, or maybe I should say it was a huge piece of my divorce. Because I was married to a man who got value out of how much money he could display. He was a teacher, and he needed to take all of his students out for pizza after school. And he had to keep rolls of money in his pocket. And he loved to spend money. Well, being in a marriage with him meant I became a penny pincher because he was the overspender. And neither of those extremes are really good. But money issues and the amount of debt that he accumulated, not once, not twice, but 3 times before I was in recovery. And my sponsor at the time said, no more, Madeline, do not get him out of debt. But I had all along, all those other times, because I thought, being a good wife, am I not supposed to get your husband out of debt, pay off the credit cards, pay off the bank loads, pay off whatever he had done? But I mean, thousands and thousands of dollars. And my sponsor said, nope, Madeline, that is not your problem. His spending is your problem, because you have taught him that he can spend all he wants and you'll back him up and you'll pay him off. And he was absolutely right. So I had to shift gears, and there's a whole lot to that story that we don't have time for me to share tonight. But I had to learn in recovery that money does not give me self-worth. Money has nothing to do with self-worth, and that money is not something I should dwell on. But at the same time, money is not something I should be frivolous about. I need to know how much money I've got coming in, know what bills need to be paid, and I needed to learn what's the difference in my wants and my needs, what is crucial, what is not crucial, what do I really need? And yes, I need food, I need a roof over my head, and today I need the internet and a computer that works. But I don't have to buy expensive stuff, and I don't have to buy on impulse as well. But I had to learn a lot of that in recovery, in doing my steps. So this program not only helped me with my own life and my own relationships, but it also helped me with money management in a healthy way, not an obsessive way. Great program tonight. Thank y'all. And the stories that y'all told, oh, my heart went out to you. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Madeline. Annette, would you like to share with us?
Sure. Hey,
Thank you.
family. Good to be here. Yeah, good to be here. Thank you all. It was absolutely a pleasure to be a part of this and hear all your stories. Just so beautiful. So beautiful. So much, something to go back and listen to. So I'm really grateful that it's being recorded. But I was thinking, it's there's this sacred text that talks about the love of money is the root of all evil. It doesn't say money's evil. Money's not evil. It's neither good or bad. It's basically neutral. And I give it all the meaning it has for me based on my concepts, my old ideas, what I grew up with, what I was taught, what I caught, and then how I had misperceptions around it. Through recovery, there was so much to undo, uncover, discover, discard, and beginning to see that money is an energy to be respected but not abused, And I think one of the greatest teaching devices for me is when I really hit the financial amends in the 9th step. Of course, in the 8th step, we make our list. And in the 9th step, we're going out and we're making amends. And that was profound, profound, especially in areas where people hadn't remembered that I owed them money. And I had to really go into reminding them that I really did. And one of the things I found out about the energy around it was the motivation of how I was misusing um, myself, abusing my inner child, not respecting life, other people. I mean, it wasn't really about money. It was really about something so much deeper. And I think about after many years in recovery and going through and uncovering, discovering, and discarding through step 11 practice, which for me is like unbelievably vital. In a step 11 practice, I was shown that I owed money to a doctor, $400. And it was like a 20-year-old debt. And I totally forgotten about it. And God literally came into my meditation and showed me that I owed this money. And I was like devastated. I was like, I'm saving money. I don't want to write a check out for $400. And I prayed, and oh boy, did I pray. I told my sponsor, and I went ahead and I fulfilled what was being asked of me. There's something so powerful in this respecting of this energy, but not giving money more meaning than it really has or is. And yet our world does that. So I'm still a work in progress around all of this, and I'm still learning, because sometimes I slip up and I see a little something something on Amazon. I have to tell you, I'm not going to sit here and say I don't hit the, let me charge it, and I'll like be like, this is my account. It's not that's not my husband's, it's my account. So and then I'll rationalize it like, it's only $20. It's only $20. So I can laugh and I could do a redo, because even if I do hit the button, I don't want to use it as a beat down. I just, look at it as, okay, I still need to improve. That's why I keep coming back. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you for sharing. Emily?
Hi, it's Emily again, still recovering codependent and adult child of alcoholic in dysfunctional family. I wanted to mention another piece about follow up with what a previous traveler was speaking about, energy or money being energy. I totally feel that. And it took me a really long time to get to a neutral place. I did a lot of meditations, and just to throw my resources out there for my meditation resources, I listened to, if anybody's familiar with Abraham Hicks, Esther Hicks, this is just my higher power. I'm not saying, I think you can definitely still be a Christian and meditate. That's probably, I'm sure, another whole podcast. But I did want to mention, so Esther Hicks, also known as Abraham Hicks, I really follow them a lot. And I did a good, at least a year, probably 2 years of just getting to a neutral spot about money. So Esther Abraham Hicks talks about feelings being upstream or downstream. So a challenging feeling, something that gives you like a red light feeling. Talking about money or thinking about having to spend money or give away money might make you feel upset or triggered somehow, and that would be more upstream. And so I learned how to kind of neutralize that and not just kind of make it real generic, just real generic. My feelings around money, just real super generic. I spend my money, but I'm also going to get paid. I spend money, but I also have a job. I even bought technology into it. I was like, technically speaking, I don't have like a box, right? I don't have a box at the bank with my name on it that has X amount of dollars on it. If I look on my online banking, there's a number, that there's not an actual physical box with my amount of money in it. Could be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on the day. But it's just literally, it's coding if you think about it. And I even got to that level to say, look, it's just coding. It's just a program to say, this is the amount of money that I have, right? To just neutralize it as much as possible. And then I can start saying, okay, well, now I've kind of shifted my pattern. Now I can say, oh, well, this person got paid and they have a job and that's how they're making their living, and they can go spend their money on that family or something. So the people that we pay, the money that we have to give people to, and I'm not trying to say this like dysfunctional or anything, I'm talking about like the honest to God goods and services, right? We pay people for goods and services, and because they're making a living too, right? So it's kind of a circle. It's that energy, right? So if that helps anybody to just, maybe get as neutral. And again, I'm not trying to solve anybody's problem. That's what kind of works for me. It's just, I spent a year, 2 years, just getting completely neutral about it. And I admit I still have my days where I go like, oh my God, I really wish I had a raise or something. But I do a lot of work on, okay, is that really a problem? Is that something you really need? So a lot of the other previous travelers have spoken about, but I know that it's an energy, it's going to come back to me, it's going to ebb and flow like all other kind of energy does. And that kind of gives me a little bit of relief. So I hope that helps somebody. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you very much, Emily. We're almost out of time. So Ellen, would you like to be our last share? And then I'll turn it over to Vernell, who can close us out.
Yeah, I just wanted to double dip. I think what really spoke to me, another thing, was just kind of trying to, so like my family of origin, there's a lot of brands, from Eastern Europe. So there's a lot of this, just kind of keeping up, right? And once I have my own family, it's so different. Like I got rid of all those name brands because I'm with 3 kids. I don't really need that all that stuff, and it just felt so freeing to not have that the pressure to just keep up, and because that what didn't bring me happiness, and it really, like, I'd rather stay and look at the trees than go and shop. But I wasn't strong enough to say at that time, and now I think I know what brings me happiness, and it's okay to not have known and to know now. So thanks for letting me share.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for your shares. Vernell?
Thank you. Thank you, Abby. Yes, we're glad you all came to the special topic Zoomcast this evening. The video of the broadcast will be posted on the Growing in Recovery YouTube channel in approximately 1 to 2 weeks, or when Emily has time to get it there. And I did post the document in the chat with all types of 12-step resources that hopefully will prove beneficial to you. I don't know about you, but I love resources. We hope you tell your friends and join us for the last Zoomcast of the season, which is in a month, which is going to be December 14th. And this, I'd like to see if Medeline or anyone on the 4th Zoomcast presenters would like to share anything about the last topic series for 2022.
Thanks, Vernell. And I'm Medeline again. I'm an adult child and codependent. And what y'all have asked us to do on this last topic is to answer the question, how do you use recovery tools in family matters? So how do you use recovery tools with your children if you still have children at home? How do you use recovery tools with your own parents or aunts or uncles or brothers or sisters? And then since in ACA, they've been coming out lately with the idea of reparenting ourselves, we may talk about that a little bit as well. So I will see you again on December the 14th for another Zoomcast, another session for a special topic that you guys have asked for. See you then.
Thank you. We're looking forward to that. It sounds awesome. Okay, thank you all. We don't want to hold you any longer. I appreciate you being here. The promises really do come true. They can happen to you. The healing work you must do. ACA Promise 6, we will enjoy feeling stable, peaceful, and financially secure. Debtors Anonymous Promise 4, we will begin to live a prosperous life unencumbered by fear, worry, resentment, or debt. AA Promise 10, fear of people and economic insecurity will leave us. As we bring this Zoomcast to a close, we want to remind you to always take what you need and leave the rest. We've chosen to close with an adaptation on ACA's 7th tradition, which states, every ACA group ought to be fully self-supporting through contributions from the fellowship. Donate as you can. And Karen has posted the Growing Up Together links in the chat if you'd like to consider making a donation. This is a reference from ACA. Tradition 7 Insight, contributing to ACA World Services is a critical part of maintaining ACA World Service Organization's delivery of the message to the adult child who still suffers. We are reminded of the spiritual principle of giving with a willingness to help another. And this is adapted from chapter 19 of the ACA Big Red Book. In recovery, we learn to give for the right reason, and we learn the right amount to give. We give our fair share and let others give their fair share. So we all take ownership in our recovery. Today, I seek the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. We have ended our program for this evening. We thank you guys. The loving parent loves you all.